hello. Karen here, Soul Symbols Astrology and Tarot, and I'm going to do a dark moon reading. We're coming up, we've passed the last quarter, and we're coming up to that dark moon. So it's the time to look over the last month, the lunation cycle of Leo. Particularly important with that is our sense of self, or how we shine. It's the home of the sun, our vitality, life force, and how we shine. So, yeah, just have a look at that dark moon, and it officially happens 3 days. The new moon, which is the 23rd, is the new moon. New moon in Virgo, so we'll be looking at that. I pulled a card to kind of inquire of spirit what messages need to come, and we have the Temperance card, and I was very excited about this. This is about doing our magic before, we set off on a new um cycle. It's incredible. So this for me is in the Thoth deck. It's the Alchemy card. It's the card of holding the two extremities into balance. People call it middle road, but it's not just, not swaying to the left or the right, but it's combining those two things. So it's not being in denial of one extremity or the other, or favouring one extremity of the other. It's about that kind of balancing off. Um, yeah, spirit is wanting us to look at the extremities, the polarities that may have um, emerged, you know. So, temperance is the kind of crossroads of the fire and the water. We got the sun up there, we got the moon phases, the water down there. It's expansion and restraint at the same time, spirit and matter. Okay, so in astrology, it's the Sagittarian flame of truth seeking. So you may have found throughout um, this lunation, you've been truth seeking either within yourself or without, or both of those. Okay, and it's Jupiter's gift of synthesis, this card. Okay, and we can also talk about Chiron there with the Sagittarian archetype. Chiron is the he's part primal and he's part man. He's that mix of the primal and the man. So we're looking at our deep, our collective deep primal, the things that are in our primal energy. So it can be, those emotions that we try and ignore or deny, the rage, the anger, out in the world, the violence, it's the primal things, the primal needs that we've got, the need for food, for nurture, for love, just all those primal energies, but also the spiritual energies, okay? But Chiron's deep medicine is integration. It's that man and beast archetype. So it's that deep integration. And that wisdom is like a meta wisdom for the collective, that life's opposite are not enemies, but they're ingredients in a greater alchemy. Okay, temperance teaches us the art of dynamic harmony. Harmony doesn't come from denying one extremity of the other; it comes from the blend of both. Um, so it allows for both the soul and the universe to keep evolving, really. So it's we're in the material. Sorry. We're in the material. We are surrounded by material. We have needs, we have wants, we have, all the things, all our needs that need meeting for survival. Okay. Um, yeah, it's the integrator. And if you look at the card, Excuse me, sorry, I'll get the card back up again. If you look at that card, she has got here, she's got the sun above her head, she's got the moon. That's that, the dance of the sun and the moon, our luminaries, how we're illumined by day, how we're illumined by night, the reflector, the life giver and the reflector of that light. Okay. She's got also the phases of that moon. So Temperance is about the ever changing nature of life. We go from new beginnings, the new moon. We, we wax and get bigger. If we're talking about Leo, our egos can get bigger, or our vitality can get bigger, our life force, our shine gets bigger. We get the full illumination and then it starts waning again, okay? So it's the forever changing face with this constant of the sun. So in life, we have the constants of change. We have the constants of, some people say taxes. Oh, you could say taxes, but we have the constant of death, cycles of life, um, life, birth, death. We see them in nature, that cyclical way of being, okay? But these are constants. They are constants. We cannot change endings. There's a lot we can't change that is not in our power to change. But what is in our power is this ability to blend extremities, the ability to kind of, you know, plug into that. So bring that harmony. Um, we often ignore our primal natures. That's what shadow work's about. It's that acceptance that we've got parts we've repressed, we've ignored, we've pushed down, we don't like to look at because they're not socially accepted, but they are all a part of us, the same as that moon. All the different phases, all the different expressions of us. So I think spirit wants us to look at that, to look honestly at everything we are. So I'm going to pull from this muse deck. I love the muse deck. And we'll see. We'll We'll have a look. I'm not going to take that card nor that. I'm just dropping them randomly. We'll have a look what spirit is wanting to say to us. Oh, so we've already got our fire and water there, plus our earth, which is interesting when it's. Then we have the wheel, which is actually Jupiter. So we're really talking about fire. We're talking about the cauldron, the alchemy, the changeability, our six of voices. That sense of moving on, of changing. That movement forward. But that knowledge, that kind of, I always see that six of swords, the six of voices. It's a level of sadness. It's a sadness at things that have gone wrong, a sadness at what we've lost, of what opportunities we missed. It can be that sense of regret. But it is about moving on. There's a sense that spirit wants us to do this alchemy to move on, okay? Um, seven of materials, seven of pentacles. That's tending our work. What are you tending? What have you been tending? What have you been trying to move away from? What have you been tending that's wilted, in relationship, in your work, spiritually? I mean, I'm seeing very much this as spiritual, but everything spiritual again is within our material. It's not either or, it's both and. Everything is sacred. It's, we're created. We are created and we are co-creators. So what are you creating? What rose garden are you tending? Are you tending it? Is it wilting? Does it need to wilt and be let go? Does it need to be moved on from? Our Seven of Wands, Seven of Inspiration. I mean, there's a sense of, you know, again, there's a sense of sadness. There really is a sense of sadness, but I think collectively we do have this sense of sadness. But that sense of sadness does not, in any shape or form, need to be, colouring us so we're hiding our faces so that we've got our back to the sunrise or the sunset, whatever is working for you, that we are kind of pushing ourselves into a hole, not being out there, not being who we need to be, who we are, you know, who we're made to be. So it's that sense of defending a position, you know. It says, if you think of the Seven of Wands and the Rider Waite, the guy on the hill, and there's all those wands, it looks like they're coming for him and he's standing on top of the hill. So it's not hiding, it's standing, but what are you defending? Is there a project, that you've been working on where you've been under some form of attack? I'm just going to look at the bottom energy. Okay, what have we got on our bottom energy? Yeah, we got the star. We're talking about hopes, dreams, wishes here, okay? You know, what what of your hopes and your dreams, your wishes, the things that you're innovating, where are you needing to stand your ground, Spirit's asking, but is it necessary? You know, are you reflecting? There's a real sense here of sometimes our primal need is that need to be loved, to be noticed, to be out there, to be validated, which can sometimes have us tending the wrong things. If we've got an overwhelming need to be validated, we will sometimes be under that attack because when we want validation, when we're in a kind of desert landscape asking for validation, we often get the opposite. Life will throw us the opposite, or we subconsciously put ourselves in the opposite for that growth, because the only validation you need is your own and the divine. Okay, and sometimes we're asked to go on paths where we lose all validation, and that is, for me, this energy of this Seven of Inspiration is very different to the Rider Waite one. I see her, she's kind of dropped down there. If you look at her, she's got her head, she's covered, she's kind of hiding to a degree. But I see this more as a descent to soul. She's facing the darkness. Okay, there's a diamond there. Now, when we face the darkness, it is that descent to soul. It is that kind of disillusion of the egoic self. Okay, and with this moon. With this moon, this is our subconscious. There's something here with these messages. We've got 6 and 2 sevens here in the moon, okay, where we are needing to drop down, to let go of a sense of expectation, the wheels then too. So it's what fate is. It's very much a sense of destiny. But with this alchemical card, yeah, there's the moon faces. We've got a full one. We've been illumined throughout this cycle of where our extremities are. They may be external extremities. You may be talking about, you know, um, conflict in relationship or at work, and your sense of needing that harmony and that balance within relationship. It may be that you need to take both of those things, that you need to look at all sides, all stand, having that true empathy, standing in the shoes of someone else, but not being not being wounded by it. I'm saying this because there's this thing about validation that I'm seeing here, this need to be, working for validation, looking for validation, but facing the soul. It's that desert. Whenever I see a desert, I think about, um, walking alone, that sense of walking alone. I mean, we've got the triple goddesses here. They're the fates. Again, moon's very much to do with fortune, and then we have the wheel of fortune, which is Jupiter, who rules this alchemy card, Sagittarius, the temperance card. We are being tempered. Our life tempers us. And, again, that temperance, we think of temper, but we often think of, this kind of temperance is some sort of socially acceptable way of being. And that's where we go look for validation. That's where we kind of need our validation. We need to know we fit. You may not fit. You got the star there, that's Aquarius, Aquarians, that's the bottom energy. There's a sense of not fitting where you are. And in terms of spirituality, we often don't fit where we are, in the everyday work. We have a side of us that we often kind of hide away, this seven of inspirations. But we need to hold our ground there. We need to not, hide. We are all things in the sense of we are both. We're like that centaur, we're part animal and we're part human. People don't like hearing that, but we are. Think of yourself at your worst when you're in a rage. That's primal. Feel into that energy over this dark moon, feel into this energy, because it's about our vitality, where we shine. And often we find out how we shine by seeing how we or our circumstances or other people don't let us shine, or where we're detracted from. Okay, this standing your ground, tending your roses. Okay, but there's a sense of, at this dark moon, of moving off from that and allowing, this fortune of the moon, the ever changing, open up to that, open to the wheel, open to the expansion of that. Okay, that sometimes includes facing this darkness. It's that she's faced away from the sun there. Okay, she's not facing the sun. She has her back to the sun and she's facing the darkness. But that is where the diamonds are forged. Okay, this diamond shape. It is where, in the darkness, under pressure, beautiful diamonds are forged. So I really have a sense for those who are watching that, and the collective, that the difficulties we are facing is to forge us. Right, I'm going to get us the archetype card, okay? Yeah, we're being forged. Okay. And the diamond is forged under the most enormous pressure. So if you're having pressures trying to, bring forth your project, you're putting everything into it, you're tending it, you're working at it, you're reflecting on what you're doing, but you're kind of feeling like this, that you're having to defend even your own sense of, this is the right thing, this is the right way for me to go. Yeah, look, the maiden. We've got the maiden archetype, okay? There's that rose there, okay? So the maiden, the maiden is, for me, that myth of Persephone, who goes down to Hades. Okay, this is a soul drop, people. We're being asked for. The next new moon is Virgo, and people see that as just practicality lists, But Virgo is actually about deep devotion and service. Okay, now the only way we can find how we are supposed to be serving the collective, is by that drop into the darkness. Persephone went down into the underworld, okay? Yeah, it's that. I'm going to pick, I'm going to grab another card, see what alchemical process we've got going on. So it's that drop in, that true drop in to the underworld, okay? Like Persephone. Yeah, breath. Okay. So one sec. Yeah, I'm feeling that connection between the maiden and the seven of materials, you know, that kind of the colours, the tendon, the hands. But it really is that sense, the archetype that we're working with is that a level of naivety, you know, um, with temperance, with Sagittarius, that centaur was a wounded healer. Okay, he became a wounded healer. He was wounded, and he learnt his wisdom through that wound. Okay, he was philosophy, and he taught, and yeah, he learnt his ability to teach wisdom through his wound. But you know, with this maiden, with that naivety I'm seeing there, and that kind of fear of dropping, there's a fear here, yeah. A fear of dropping into that darkness of our unconscious, that darkness, that void type feeling. The fear is the naivety, because what happened was Persephone, you know, she ate the pomegranate seeds, and then it's the myth of she had to stay in the underworld, hence why we get winter. So that lack of growth, there's no roses in the winter. Okay, there's darkness there, there's uncertainty. We feel in the hands of the gods to bring the sun back up, you know, to have, we can nurture our plants, but during this winter period the seeds are in the ground. This is the dark moon period. So, really getting the sense that there may be some fear, there may be some visceral sense of anxiety or impending doom. I don't want this to be negative, but when we connect with that primal essence, it often comes with that sense of helplessness, powerlessness, um, fear of the dark, of the unknown. Okay. I'm going to read from the book for this breath card, because I think this is the clue alchemically of how, oh, open straight on it, how we are going to deal with that breath. Just got to get my glasses. Where's my glasses? Glasses. I've lost my glasses, people. Right, you'll have to bear with me. Okay, so we're talking about inspiration. Okay, that that inhaling, that inspiration, that sense of inspiration coming to us while we're facing any darkness, any shadow there. Okay, it's also about presence, our breath. The breath, the breath is, we take the first breath at birth, we take the last breath at death. Okay, so it is time. For me, breath is time, but it's also a way of cracking through to divine, to your sense of soul. It's the breath brings you into liminal spaces. It brings you into spaces that you often can't get. Okay, so it may be that, you need to do some breath work. Breath is spirit. The breath is spirit. It is tucking into spirit. Okay. Um, and it's life force. We were talking about life force earlier. The Leo sun. The sun is life force. That's the lunation we've just been through. Okay. to work alchemically to bring those extremities. You can look at the first breath, the last breath. They're extremities. One brings life, one we leave our bodies. Okay, so they're polarities in that sense, but it is a continual breath through life. Okay, so there's no more direct way to practice alchemy than to study the breath, the pneuma. Okay. Um, and we've got access, haven't we, to breath. It's a good contemplation, is breath. It encompasses so much. Okay. um it occurs at every moment. We're just breathing. We just breathe. We breathe on automatic unless we're working with our breath. And it's that working with the breath. It's that space between the breath. And you can look at that metaphorically. If you're working within a relationship, your business, a project, out in the world, volunteering, doing spiritual work, are you taking a breath in? Are you looking between that breath in, where you're filling up, and that breath out, where you're giving? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? You're being asked. Okay. So the breath is that way. It's the merging. We were talking in the Temperance card. It's the merging between the physical and the mystical, the breath. And we've got access to it because it's in our body and we're doing it all the time. So, yeah, if you can, have a look into some breath work, breath meditation. Think about that pause between the breaths. Okay, that's your liminal space. That is a space in the darkness in that sense. Okay, you think of the centaur of the alchemy, where does the primal in him end and where does the human begin? Okay, his animal nature and his human nature. With the moon in the rider waite, you get the wolf and the dog, so you get that primal and that. We really are talking along those lines here. And the three maidens there, she's got her thread. It's fate, it's destiny, the wheel of fortune. Okay, so it's about your destiny, it's about our collective destiny, because we are all joined together in that way. My destiny is not separate from your destiny because it all works into the one. If you look at yourself as a cell in a huge body, what one cell does triggers what the other does. It's this kind of connectivity. It's the mycelium at the roots of the tree. It's a different species, but they are networking, they are informing, they are messaging. Okay, so it's this. Excuse me one moment. Yeah, I'm seeing this two things, the polarity. Okay, so ask, what is it, particularly over this month, that you have seen as extremities? Is it someone else's behaviour that's an extremity to yours? Is it your work and how you feel and the extremity of the culture of work? Is it what you see out in the world? Your sense of wanting that harmony, that balance. Okay. What is it? Where is that extremity in your life? Have you been doing spiritual walk and you've got this extremity between some ideal, the sun, Leo, we're talking about the end of the Leo moon, the sun leaves, the ideal, the absolute, that kind of ideal that we all point towards. Okay, is there an extremity between what your ideal is and what's going on in you, or how you see yourself behaving out in the world? Or is it something within you, that you feel you take two steps forward and then something goes smash and you kind of feel like you've lost ground? Okay, that whole thing about losing ground and going towards something, it's a kind of extremity of the material and the spiritual, because with the mystical, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere except inside ourselves, except to connect with divine. That's, we have to, in a sense, know that we're physical, know that we're material, and at the same time, and we're in this world, we're taking our first breath, all of us, we're here, we're embodied, we're in a body, which doesn't often feel that spiritual, although it is, it's our vehicle, it's sacred. We need to look at it like that. I'm saying that to myself as well. But there's that sense of looking between those extremities, those polarities. It can be the birth of a baby and the death of your death or somebody else's death. What are you denying in that? You know, are you denying the reality that there is that time with this breath? The one thing that breath encompasses is time. It is time. It's the time between our breath in and our breath out. And it's the time between, our birth and our death. That is what we're here for. How are we spending that time? Can we hold those two polarities? Because with the alchemy card, when we can hold life and death, the cycles, these beautiful cycles in nature, the sap rising in the tree, the sap falling, and the death of the leaves and the vitality and the beautiful greenness. But that sense of knowing, as with the moon, when a cycle ends, a new one is beginning, and we're reflecting on the dark moon. Yeah. I hope that makes sense to you, that. But yeah, you, with this breath, we need to know, that even if we feel breathless, metaphorically, we have lost our breath with what we're doing with the people around us. Even if we have lost our breath, we need to know that it's revitalized again. That kind of sigh, that, oh, and you breathe out, and there's exasperation, and there's a sense of what is going to be next, what is going to happen next. Okay. But we breathe in again, and we breathe in relief often. So it's that sense, if we go back to this alchemical card, we have the sun, our vitality, our minds, the force of life. We have the changeable moon. But if you look closely there, okay, under here is a moth. There is a picture of a moth in the water. Okay. Now the water is disillusion. Okay. It's disillusion in alchemy. It's disillusion. It's the dissolving of properties. You're trying to change lead into gold. In this case, it's our souls. The lead of who we are into the gold, the shiny thing. The gold sun. But there's a moth there. That is profound transformation going on under the water. Okay, so are you letting your waters flow? Are you, you know, we talk about temper, and temper in metallurgy is, the rigidity of one metal and the malleability of another. Look at the water. Are we too rigid? Are we too malleable? How can we hold that balance between the extremities there? Yeah. I'm going to get a card from here. Oh, look at that. The Joyful Muse. That's so Jupiterian. Jupiter ruling Sagittarius. The Joyful Muse. Okay. So this has been, like a lot of my reads, heavy. But again, I often have to catch myself with that, because there's a sense of, when we're talking about the darkness, we're talking about the primal, we're talking about heavy emotions, depression, darkness, da, 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 da. It does feel heavy, but this is the alchemy. It is knowing that in the deepest darkness, sorry, I laugh at it because this just speaks to me. So, in the deepest darkness, we find the deepest joy, is where we find our soul. And there's no greater joy than finding your soul, the essence of who you are. A lot of our hopes and dreams, this under energy, a lot of the hopes and dreams we have, I was talking about validation earlier, are often um, so that we can be seen, so that we can have our needs met, so that we can be loved, so we can be successful to live in the material. And there's nothing wrong with those. But that joy and that pain, that dance, the sun and the moon, the dance, they're extremities. One brings daylight, one brings night, okay? They're extremities, but they share a dance, a cosmic dance that brings you spirit and soul, fate and fortune, destiny, purpose, meaning. Okay, so we need to be finding this beautiful joy, okay, in whatever situation you're in. But the bigger, the more widespread the darkness, the longer you have to walk in the darkness, the more light that needs to pour in. So it doesn't, if you're dealing with things that, there's shame, there's guilt, there's regret, don't fear that. Sit with that, okay? Sit, face the darkness of that, because that is just one expression, okay? And when you sit with those primal feelings, if you're raging, I always think rage against the machine, if you're raging, there is a reason for it. If you're feeling shame and guilt, there's a reason for it. Sit with it. Allow those feelings to go through your body. Don't just, mentally calculate it, allow it. Because you'll find that diamond, you'll find, why these things. And so I say why, sometimes there is no why to what happens, it happens, but we can find beauty in the ashes, okay? We can find joy in the suffering, and it's the holding of those twos, that changing face of the moon, in the Temperance card, the moon here, the moon is there on the wheel of fortune. The moon is fortune in ancient astrology, but that changeability, if we're up in the air and we are high and things are going well, we need to accept, have that radical acceptance that that phase will change, okay? And we will, the phase will change. And then if we're at our lowest point, know that that's going to change. It's that acceptance of the extremities. That's temperance. I'm going to pull one more card just as a message card, but find your joy, or find the balance. Like I've halved them and that one come out. Right, now I've got to try and read this. Yeah, look, I mean, that kind of explains it all. New day, okay? We've got the moth there. Well, it's more a dragonfly, but that sense of transformation there, okay? We got the sun coming up. It's the sun and the moon again. So it's a new day. It's all a new day. Every time the sun goes down, we can deal with, and this is this thing with our temperance, to allow the flow of the day, the feelings, the circumstances, the things that happen on the way we react out of our primal, we might shout at someone because they've annoyed us, we might, you know, but it's going with the flow, not censoring yourself, being your full self. We are both material, we're primal, we're part of that. Our physicality is animal in that sense. We have animalistic instincts. we have that part of our brain which is, that lizard brain, that primal brain part of us, but we also have higher consciousness, higher functioning. So go through the day, whatever day, whether your day has been months or years long and it's been moonlight all the way, kind of darkness, or whether your day has been sunshine and has lasted 2 days, just know a new day is coming. A new day always appears because, as I said at the beginning, change is the one thing we can count on in life. Wouldn't it be boring if we couldn't? I hope that all made sense. I hope that was helpful. I hope that'll help you in your kind of dark moon reflections towards the end of this week. I will be back for a reading on this new moon in Virgo that's happening on the 23rd. I should do this probably Wednesday for you, so you have a heads up. And let me know how you're feeling in the comments. How's your journey? Where are you on that journey? Are you being able to hold the two extremities? Are you learning to do that? Are you learning to find that balance and harmony? Let me know in the comments, okay? And if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe. And if you want a personal reading, oracle, tarot, mixture of both, lunation, soul path, shadow work, astrology readings, pop over to soulsymbols.co.uk. Okay, lots of love to you all. See you on the next one. Bye bye.